Daily habits shape identity in ways most people never slow down long enough to notice. We often think our lives change because of big moments, graduations, new jobs, heartbreaks, breakthroughs, but real transformation doesn't happen in those flashes. It happens quietly, slowly, in the private patterns we repeat without even thinking. Every day, from the moment you wake up to the moment you close your eyes, your actions, choices, and thoughts are carving out who you are becoming. Your identity isn't built by what you occasionally do with excitement, it's built by what you consistently do with intention. The small things you repeat, your routines, your decisions, your disciplines, even your excuses, those are the things shaping your character long before the results ever show up in your life. Think about it, every action you take is a vote for the type of person you want to become. When you choose discipline over comfort, you're casting a vote for strength. When you show up on a day you didn't feel like it, you're casting a vote for resilience. When you keep a promise to yourself, you're casting a vote for self-respect. And every time you choose the easier path, delay what matters, or settle for less effort, you're still casting a vote just for a different identity. People often underestimate how powerful the little choices are because they don't show immediate results. You don't wake up fit after one workout, and you don't ruin your health after one unhealthy meal. But repeated over time, these tiny habits become the story of your entire life. The direction of your daily routine becomes the direction of your destiny. The truth is, your habits define your standards. If you wake up every day and decide to push a little harder, to improve even by 1%, you're slowly building a mindset that refuses to settle. You start seeing yourself as someone capable of growth, someone worthy of success, someone strong enough to keep going. On the other hand, if every day you allow yourself to cut corners, complain, or make excuses, you're reinforcing an identity that accepts mediocrity. You don't need to say, "I am this type of person" out loud. Your habits say it for you. They speak louder than words, wishes, or dreams. It's easy to blame circumstances for why life looks the way it does, but more often than not, it's the daily choices that quietly shape the outcome. Your identity is not fixed. It is constantly being formed by what you choose to prioritize. If you choose learning every day, you become knowledgeable. If you choose gratitude, you become peaceful. If you choose courage, even in small moments, you become bold. And if you repeatedly choose fear or hesitation, you eventually start seeing yourself as someone who can't take the next step. Your actions are teaching your mind who you are. The beauty of daily habits is that you don't need giant leaps to change your life. You just need consistency. Even 5 minutes of effort repeated daily can outgrow an hour of effort done once in a while. Small, intentional habits compound. They build momentum. They build confidence. They build a sense of trust in yourself because nothing shapes your identity more than proving to yourself day after day that you can keep going. The opposite is also true. Every time you break your own promise, every time you say, "I'll do it tomorrow," and don't, every time you choose comfort over commitment, you lose a little bit of trust in yourself. And when you lose trust in yourself, your identity weakens. Your habits also shape how you see the world. A person who practices discipline daily sees opportunities where others see obstacles. A person who practices gratitude sees blessings where others see problems. A person who practices focus sees progress where others see distractions. And someone who practices avoidance sees fear everywhere. Identity grows in the same direction as your habits, and life follows the identity you believe in. What you do daily builds the internal story you carry. I am capable. I am consistent. I am disciplined. Or I am unfocused. I am lazy. I am not enough. Whether you know it or not, your habits are teaching you who you are. They're shaping the way you walk, how you think, how you respond to challenges, and what you believe about your own potential. You become the sum of every repeated action, every repeated thought, and every repeated choice. Not overnight, not suddenly, but gradually, day by day, until one day you look in the mirror and realize that your daily habits didn't just create your routine, they created you. Consistency beats motivation because motivation is unpredictable. It comes in waves, it fades without warning, and it depends on emotions that change from moment to moment. You can wake up one day feeling unstoppable and the very next day feel completely drained, uninspired, or overwhelmed. That's the problem with motivation. It's not reliable. If you build your life around waiting to feel ready, you'll stay stuck because feelings don't build the future. Actions do. And the people who achieve the most are not the ones who stay motivated. They're the ones who stay consistent. They show up even when their feelings don't match their goals. They do the work even when it's inconvenient, uncomfortable, or unexciting. Consistency doesn't care about your mood. It doesn't depend on excitement or energy. It's a commitment that says, I will show up whether I feel like it or not. When you decide to be consistent, you're choosing to rely on discipline instead of emotion. You're choosing to build routines strong enough to survive low energy days, bad days, stressful days, and days when everything feels heavy. Anyone can move forward when life feels good. But the person who keeps moving on the days when life feels difficult, that person becomes unstoppable. That's where identity grows. That's where confidence is built. That's where greatness is shaped. Motivation makes you start, but consistency is what makes you finish. How many people have started a diet, a workout plan, a business idea, or a new habit with insane motivation, only to quit weeks later when the excitement fades? Motivation brings enthusiasm, but enthusiasm doesn't last. You can't rely on sparks to keep a fire burning, you need fuel. And consistency is that fuel. It keeps you going long enough to experience real growth, real progress, and real results. The problem is that most people quit before consistency has the chance to work. They stop because the progress feels slow. They stop because the routine feels boring. They stop because they don't feel the same thrill they felt on day one. But consistency isn't about thrills, it's about transformation. Every small action you repeat becomes a brick. And when you place the same brick every single day, you build something solid, something lasting, something real. But if you only place bricks when you feel inspired, your foundation will always be weak. That's why consistency beats motivation. Motivation may give you a burst of energy, but consistency builds a structure that doesn't collapse. Consistency also creates trust. Every time you show up when you didn't feel like it, you prove to yourself that you can rely on your own commitment. You send a message to your mind that you are not controlled by temporary feelings. You teach yourself that you can endure discomfort and still move forward. That kind of inner trust is rare. But once you build it, you become powerful. You stop negotiating with excuses. You stop letting laziness win. You stop believing the lies that tell you start tomorrow or skip today, it won't matter. Because when you're consistent, you know the truth. It always matters. Even the smallest bit of consistency can outwork the greatest amount of motivation. Someone who puts in 10 minutes every day will beat someone who puts in 2 hours once a month. Someone who tries a little every day will surpass someone who tries a lot only when the mood is right. Progress doesn't belong to the person who works the hardest for one day. It belongs to the person who works a little bit every day. That rhythm builds momentum, and momentum is far more powerful than motivation. In the long run, consistency changes your brain. It rewires your identity. It turns actions into habits, habits into character, and character into destiny. You begin to see yourself differently. You start believing in your ability to follow through. And that belief becomes stronger than any temporary burst of motivation could ever be. Consistency creates results that become impossible to ignore, not dramatic overnight changes, but steady growth that compounds over weeks, months, and years. Motivation is external. It comes from videos, speeches, quotes, and emotions. Consistency is internal. It comes from who you are becoming. And when you choose consistency, you choose a lifestyle that doesn't collapse just because your mood changes. You choose long-term strength over short-term excitement. You choose daily action over temporary inspiration. You choose a path that guarantees growth not because you move fast, but because you never stop moving. Small choices compound in ways we rarely notice in the moment. Most people believe life changes because of one big decision or one dramatic turning point, but real transformation comes from the tiny decisions we repeat every single day. The little things we do, what time we wake up, what we choose to eat, how we talk to ourselves, how long we scroll, whether we move our body or stay still, whether we choose effort or excuses. These small moments stack up. They quietly build our future. They quietly shape our identity. And over time, they become the difference between the life we dream about and the life we settle for. What seems insignificant today can eventually rewrite the entire story of who we become. The problem is that small choices are easy to overlook because the consequences aren't immediate. Eating one unhealthy meal doesn't make you sick. Skipping one workout doesn't make you weak. Procrastinating once doesn't ruin your dream. And because nothing bad happens instantly, people assume their choices don't matter. But small choices accumulate the same way. Drops of water fill a bucket slowly, quietly, and eventually overwhelmingly. You don't see the result right away, but the process is happening whether you pay attention or not. Every decision you make is like putting a little weight on one side of the scale. One choice might not tip it, but hundreds of choices, thousands, those can shift the entire direction of your life. This idea works both for you and against you. If every day you're choosing something that moves you forward even slightly, you may not see progress for a while, but eventually you'll break through. And if every day you're choosing habits that hold you back even slightly, you may not notice at first, but eventually you'll find yourself stuck, frustrated, or overwhelmed. The scary truth is that small negative choices compound just as fast as positive ones. 5 minutes of complaining becomes a negative mindset. 10 minutes of distraction becomes an unfocused lifestyle. One day of avoiding responsibility becomes a pattern of avoidance. And slowly, without meaning to, you become someone who expects less from yourself. Not because of a major failure, but because of tiny choices repeated over time. On the other hand, small positive choices feel too easy to dismiss because they don't give big results right away. Reading a page of a book feels too simple. Walking for 10 minutes feels too small. Saving a little money feels almost pointless. Practicing a skill for a few minutes feels insignificant. But these tiny actions are seeds. They grow, they compound, they create momentum. And momentum is the most powerful force in personal growth. It starts with the smallest push, but once it builds, it becomes a force that carries you forward even on hard days. The hardest part is simply starting small and staying consistent long enough to see the compounding effect take over. The reality is that your future self is being shaped right now by what you repeat. The quality of your life isn't determined by one big effort, it's determined by 1,000 small efforts. People who reach their goals aren't necessarily more talented or lucky, they're just people who understood the value of small steps. They knew that one tiny improvement every day doesn't seem like much in the moment, but over a year, it becomes massive progress. They knew that getting better by even 1% each day compounds into a completely different level of skill, confidence, and capability. Small choices compound in relationships as well. A few kind words every day build trust. A little gratitude builds connection. A small gesture of support builds loyalty. But a few careless comments, a little neglect, or a bit of disrespect repeated over time, those small choices can slowly destroy what once felt strong. In this way, relationships don't succeed or fail because of big dramatic events. They rise or fall because of the repeated choices people make when they think those choices don't matter. The same is true for your mindset. Spending a few minutes every day feeding your mind with something positive builds faith. Practicing discipline in tiny moments builds strength. Choosing courage in small situations builds resilience. But feeding yourself negativity, doubt, or fear every day, even in small doses, eventually shapes your belief system. You become what you expose yourself to over and over again. At the end of the day, the compounding power of small choices is simple. Little things become big things when repeated. The quiet decisions become the loud results. The tiny habits become the defining traits. And the smallest step, taken consistently, becomes a journey that transforms everything. Discipline creates freedom because it gives you control over your life instead of letting circumstances or emotions control you. Most people think discipline is restrictive, like a prison that stops you from enjoying life. But the truth is the opposite. A lack of discipline is what traps you. It traps you in bad habits, in procrastination, in regret, in stress, in financial pressure, in physical exhaustion, and in a life that always feels behind. Discipline is what breaks those chains. Discipline is what opens the door to possibilities that can't be reached through comfort or convenience. It's the structure that gives your future room to grow. When you learn to master yourself, you unlock a level of freedom that most people never experience. At its core, discipline is simply doing what needs to be done even when you don't feel like doing it. It's making decisions based on values, not moods. It's choosing long-term growth over short-term pleasure. And while that sounds hard, and yes, it is hard, it also creates a life where you're not constantly reacting, scrambling, or apologizing for the choices you made out of impulse. Discipline keeps your life steady. It builds a foundation you can depend on. And that reliability is what gives you freedom. The freedom to grow, to explore, to dream, and to achieve without being held back by your own behaviors. Think about the areas of life where people feel stuck. Most of the time, it's a discipline problem. Someone feels trapped in their job because they never developed the discipline to build new skills. Someone struggles financially because they never discipline their spending. Someone feels unhealthy because they never discipline their habits. Someone feels mentally chaotic because they never discipline their focus. And someone feels regret because they never discipline their time. The freedom they want, financial freedom, emotional freedom, physical freedom, mental freedom, comes from discipline. Freedom is not a gift. It is earned through consistent effort and wise choices. One of the most powerful forms of freedom discipline creates is the ability to trust yourself. When you tell yourself you're going to do something and you actually do it, you build self-respect. You build confidence. You build an identity that says, I keep my word, I show up, I don't quit. That kind of trust is rare because most people break promises to themselves every day. They say they'll start tomorrow. They say they'll wake up earlier. They say they'll stop procrastinating. But discipline turns those intentions into reality. And when you trust yourself, you gain the freedom to pursue bigger goals without doubting your ability to follow through. Discipline also creates freedom by protecting your time. When you are disciplined with your schedule, you suddenly have more time to do the things you love. You eliminate the stress of rushing at the last minute. You avoid the guilt that comes from neglecting responsibilities. You create space for rest, hobbies, relationships, creativity, and opportunities that would never have fit into an undisciplined life. Time becomes something you control instead of something that controls you. That alone is a powerful form of freedom. Another way discipline creates freedom is by reducing fear. When you consistently work on your goals, even in small ways, you become prepared. Preparation removes pressure. It removes panic. It removes anxiety. A disciplined student doesn't fear the exam. A disciplined athlete doesn't fear competition. A disciplined worker doesn't fear losing opportunities. A disciplined leader doesn't fear challenges. When you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. And that readiness gives you the freedom to face life with confidence instead of fear. At a deeper level, discipline creates freedom because it breaks the grip of your weaker impulses. When you can say no to laziness, you gain the freedom to grow stronger. When you can say no to temptation, you gain the freedom to build a life you're proud of. When you can say no to the distractions that pull you off your path, you gain the freedom to move closer to your purpose. Discipline isn't about punishment, it's about power. The power to choose your future instead of letting your impulses choose it for you. Eventually, discipline becomes a kind of internal peace. You stop fighting yourself. You stop negotiating with excuses. You stop feeling torn between what you want now and what you want most. Your actions begin to align with your values. Your life begins to match your vision. And that alignment brings a level of freedom that can't be bought or borrowed. It can only be earned. So yes, discipline might feel difficult in the moment. It might feel uncomfortable, demanding, or inconvenient, but the life it creates is worth far more than the comfort it requires you to give up. Because every moment of discipline leads to more control, more confidence, more possibilities, and more freedom than you ever imagined you could have. Pain, pressure, and struggle refine you in ways comfort never can. Most people spend their whole lives trying to avoid discomfort, running from anything that feels heavy or difficult. But what they don't realize is that the very things they are trying so hard to escape are the things that have the power to turn them into who they're meant to be. Growth isn't born in easy seasons. Strength isn't built in calm conditions. Character isn't shaped through smooth paths. It's the moments that stretch you, break you open, and test your limits that ultimately develop the deepest parts of you. Pain reveals what matters. Pressure exposes what's real, and struggle forces you to become more than you were before. Pain is often the beginning of change. When you hurt, you learn. You learn what you can endure. You learn what you value. You learn what you're capable of. Pain sharpens your awareness. It wakes up parts of you that were sleeping. It tells you the truth about yourself, the truth you may have ignored when everything was easy. Pain teaches humility, patience, resilience, and gratitude. It strips away ego and replaces it with understanding. When life hits you hard, you start to realize that you can survive more than you thought. You discover a deeper strength that only reveals itself when you're tested. Pain is not the enemy. It's the tool life uses to carve your character and refine your perspective. Pressure works the same way. Without pressure, nothing valuable forms. Diamonds are created through intense pressure. Steel becomes strong through fire. Muscles grow through resistance. And people become their best selves through moments that force them to rise. Pressure pushes you beyond your comfort zone, beyond your old limits, and into a higher level of capability. It exposes your weaknesses, not to embarrass you, but to show you where you need to grow. Pressure isn't designed to crush you, it's designed to build you. It teaches discipline, focus, endurance, and courage. When life puts you under pressure, it's not trying to break you, it's trying to prepare you. Struggle is the space where transformation happens. When you struggle, you confront your fears, your doubts, and your excuses. You're forced to make choices that define your future. Struggle demands effort and forces you to adapt. It teaches you to keep going even when the path is unclear. It teaches you to fight even when you're tired. It teaches you to hold faith even when the outcome isn't guaranteed. Struggle makes you uncomfortable, but it also makes you grow. Every challenge you push through expands your capacity. Every obstacle you overcome teaches you a new skill. Every setback you recover from strengthens your resilience. What most people see as punishment is actually preparation. Life isn't trying to destroy you when it puts heavy things on your shoulders. It's trying to stretch you. It's trying to show you who you can become if you stop running from the weight and start carrying it with purpose. You can't build mental strength without mental challenges. You can't build emotional wisdom without emotional storms. You can't build spiritual depth without moments that shake you. Struggle is the maker of maturity, and hardship is the sculptor of greatness. The truth is, comfort creates stagnation. When everything is easy, you stop moving, you stop growing, you stop reaching for more. But pain and pressure force you back into motion. They push you toward your potential. They remind you that you're alive, that you still have more inside you, that you're capable of more than the life you've been settling for. The moments that feel the most difficult are often the ones doing the deepest work inside you. And as painful as struggle can be, it also builds empathy. When you've walked through darkness, you learn how to recognize it in others. You become more compassionate. You become more patient. You become someone who can lift others because you know what it feels like to fall. Pain softens your heart while it strengthens your spirit. It gives you a story, a purpose, and a strength that people who've never faced hardship can't understand. Eventually, you begin to see struggle differently. You stop seeing it as something to avoid and start seeing it as something that refines you. It removes what's weak so your strength can rise. It takes away what's temporary so what's permanent can grow. It breaks down what doesn't belong so what does belong can stand firm. Pain, pressure, and struggle are not there to define you by what you lost, but to shape you by what you gained. You don't become who you're meant to be by living easy. You become that person by surviving difficulties that were meant to elevate you. Through every trial, every burden, and every obstacle, life is not stopping your growth, it's producing it. The struggle is not destroying you, it is refining you. Today matters more than someday because someday is where dreams go to die. It's the place where potential gets buried, where intentions fade, and where excuses grow stronger than action. People love the idea of someday because it feels safe. It lets them believe they'll change without actually changing. It lets them feel motivated without doing the work. But someday is an illusion, an empty promise we make to ourselves to feel better about avoiding the responsibilities and decisions in front of us today. The truth is, life is built on the choices you make right now, not the ones you hope to make later. What you do with this day carries more weight than all the vague plans you've stored in the future. Today is the only day you can actually control. You can't change yesterday and you can't guarantee tomorrow. But you can take one step right now. You can make one decision that shifts your direction. You can take one action that moves you closer to the life you want. People wait for the right moment, but the right moment is never coming. Momentum doesn't show up on its own. It's created by what you decide to do today. Dreams don't get built in the future. They get built in the present. The longer you delay action, the heavier your dreams become. They turn into weight instead of motivation. And every time you postpone what matters, you decrease the chance that you'll ever actually start. Today matters because it is the starting point of everything. Progress doesn't begin with a perfect plan, it begins with a single step. Even the smallest effort today puts you ahead of where you were yesterday. Even imperfect action beats perfect intentions. People underestimate how powerful a single day can be. They think change requires a dramatic event or a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. But the truth is, change happens in quiet decisions. Waking up early, practicing a skill, making a call, taking a walk, forgiving someone, learning something new, or choosing courage in a small moment. These choices might look ordinary, but repeated daily, they become extraordinary. The danger of someday is subtle but deadly. Every time you tell yourself you'll start later, you teach your mind that your future doesn't matter enough to act on today. You build a habit of delay. You strengthen the muscle of procrastination. You become someone who talks big but lives small. And the heartbreaking part is that people don't fail because they're incapable, they fail because they waited. They waited for more confidence, more clarity, more motivation, more time, more luck. But confidence comes from action, not waiting. Clarity comes from doing, not dreaming. Time is created by priorities, not by chance. And luck shows up when preparation meets opportunity, not when you sit back and hope. Today matters because your life is shaped by the days you show up, not the days you postpone. If you want to change your health, it starts with one healthy choice today. If you want to build a skill, it starts with one practice session today. If you want a better future, it starts with one disciplined decision today. This day is the seed for your entire tomorrow. What you plant now determines what you harvest later. If you plant excuses, you grow regret. If you plant effort, you grow progress. If you plant avoidance, you grow frustration. If you plant intention and action, you grow transformation. Every meaningful achievement in history started with someone deciding that today was the day, not someday, not when life got easier, not when conditions were perfect. They moved now, they tried now, they started now. And eventually, what began as a small step turned into a path, and that path turned into a purpose. People who accomplish great things aren't necessarily more gifted, they're simply unwilling to waste today. There is also a deeper truth hidden inside the urgency of today. When you choose to act now, you honor the version of yourself who wants more. You honor your potential. You honor your future. You stop betraying your own goals by delaying them. You begin to live in alignment with who you want to be. That alignment creates confidence. It creates pride. It creates momentum that cannot be stopped. And once you feel that momentum, you'll understand why people say that success is not a someday thing, it's a daily thing. Today matters more than someday because today is real, and someday is just a story. Today is the doorway, the opportunity, the moment that life has placed in your hands, and the person you become will be determined by what you choose to do with it.